Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by JJ Ball,
Yes,
Jon Mackenzie,
hello,
and Reuben Pinder.
Yo.
A Reuben that is still in his job. Just for now.
For now, yeah.
We'll see how the rest of the day goes. Now, Steve Hankey's also here.
Happy New Year!
Yes, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026, another year of your life. What happened in this year so far? Well, so many things, and we did have a plan, but then when we were all on the way to work this morning...
I was already here.
I was already here as well.
You were
Some
already
of us
here.
come-
also already
Some
were
of us
already
come in
here.
on time.
I was like probably brushing snow off my car.
Yeah. Steve and I were on the way to work. You know, Ruben Amorim got fired. So the plan all changed, didn't it? It all changed. And then all it was that. That's all it was.
Yeah. Because it turns out, even though the Chelsea manager also got fired,
No one
recently,
cares about
it's different, yeah.
Not interesting, that one, is it?
We should only focus on Man United.
Yeah. What was
The-
the Chelsea
the red-
manager's name again?
The red teams are more important than the blue teams
I
when
couldn't
it comes
agree
to
more.
content. We know this. That's
Couldn't
how it
agree
works.
more. Anyway, right, Steve Hankey, hot off the press on a cold day, is the news that Ruben Amorim has been sacked as the manager / head coach, we find out in today's episode, of Manchester United. This took up all of the show. I'm so sorry. The New York Times want me to update my laptop. Give me one moment. Oh, yeah. I'm back here now. Okay. Now, why did this supposed new dawn get so dark? Oh, my God. It's 2026 already. Christ alive. Here's things we talk about in today's episode. Should the plural for things be is or are when it comes to a football team? We get grammatically bogged down as opposed to floating. That's too much, Steve. We refuse to concede the word aura to Gen Z. You've written Gen Z, but I actually said Gen A in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that there's another Gen
No,
under
yeah,
that
it started again, haven't
They've
we?
just
the
become
alphabet,
like
yeah.
hurricanes, haven't they?
Yeah.
The generations. We used to be a bit more interesting. We were like boomer, the baby boomers,
Right, yeah.
and then millennials, and then we were just like, no, just generation.
What do you think I am?
one? A millennial.
Okay, thank you. I'm good. I'm glad. I'm happy with that.
What did you think I thought you were?
Well, I don't know. Because
What do you think I am?
apparently 96 is the cusp.
What are you?
96.
So you're a young millennial.
I saw somebody on Instagram the other day say that if you are born between 95 and 2000 and you're a younger sibling, then you're a millennial. If you're an older sibling, no, the other way around. Doesn't matter.
If you have an older sibling who is definitely a millennial, then
You're a
you
millennial.
are a
bridged
millennial
in.
too.
You're
Yeah.
I distinguish between older millennials and younger millennials, and the difference
Yeah.
is if they capitalize like internet slang. So if someone capitalizes LOL,
Right.
that means they're older millennial. And
I
then,
like to
Yeah.
go with like, do they drink and smoke? And I think Ruben's a millennial. You know,
oh, really?
Because
Yeah.
Gen Z don't.
Gen Z don't do that. They don't do
No,
that.
whereas I'm cool.
Anyway, what else? Would Erik ten Hag make a good shepherd? We discussed that on today's episode. There's the separation game. I swear we talk about more than those two things before the separation game. Who could know? We ponder what's next for Amorim. Is he going to go on a Batman-esque quest into the mountains? We did silly voices at that point, JJ.
We didn't talk about Batman enough. I think Batman is like the
Batman.
Batman are.
Batman.
I think he's like the capitalist superhero, right? 'Cause
Sure.
I don't know if it's been pointed out to you, but like this guy's like super rich, and he goes around like
Yes.
picking up like mainly petty criminals around his city,
Attacking
when
poverty.
he could just literally pay for the city to no longer have a lot of these issues, right?
It's a bit.
Right.
It's a bit Muskian, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like
I think
feeding his
so.
own ego rather
I
than
think so.
solving the problem.
Rather
Isn't
than actually
the problem it's
solving
so corrupt, the whole thing, that no, it doesn't matter how much money you put into it, it just needs to be gutted.
Now,
and
that's
the only
what
way to
they.
do it is
That's what they want
vigilante.
Batman to think.
Yeah, that sounds like the narrative which keeps capitalism in power.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think his motives are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he should institute all kinds of social institutions across the city of Gotham, youth centres,
Yeah.
soup kitchens.
He should reopen the youth
employment.
clubs.
Yeah, employment. Have employment tracks.
I
Employ
agree. Do you
people
know
who
what?
are struggling. What does he do? Where does his money come
In The
from?
Dark Knight Rises, the third of the Christopher Nolan trilogy, we even find out through the character Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is being, I think, trailed as a potential Robin.
He is Robin.
He
yeah.
is Robin. That he grew up in the Bruce Wayne orphanage foundation, which is now all falling apart because
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne's not spending any money on it anymore because Batman's gone into hiding.
Doesn't have a social conscience.
He
outside
doesn't
of-
have a social conscience. I
outside
always
of
knew that
his
about
ego.
Christian Bale. I
Mm.
always suspected, you know?
Yeah, but then
I hate the poor.
But then he also predicts the housing crisis, which is something else he probably have helped.
And exploits it for his own monetary gain in The Big Short.
He could have helped with that.
That's where he gets the money from. He gave them those terrible loan bonds,
and he killed that man dragon.
Subprime mortgages were all down to Batman.
Remember when he killed that man dragon, and then all the women dragons went to dust? Remember that one?
And now he's got AI and the bubble.
Yeah,
he's at it.
What's that dragon reference?
I can't remember the name of the film, but some people in the comments will definitely know. Matthew McConaughey's in it as well, and he shows up on a tank. It's such a bizarre sci-fi.
It's called The
Rain
Lion
of Fire.
King.
It's called Rain of Fire.
Yeah.
You were doing a bit, I'm sorry, but you helped me realise the name of
the
real film. Anyway, Steve is very upset with me, so let me say, we also discussed who should replace Ruben Amorim, and it wasn't Batman.
Jon Mackenzie.
Jon Mackenzie, and we played Points Are Bad.
I shall bring them down from the inside.
and then that was the show. Oh, also, one other thing that did happen was that even though this episode is exclusively about Man United, John did find time to talk about Aston Villa's terrible underlying numbers and how they're not sustainable.
Goals from outside the box don't count.
Goals from outside the box are great, and I enjoy them, and I think Premier League sides have players who can do that regularly. But if you make the leap from that to suggesting that this is a good way of setting up your team in the long term,
got it.
Not going to happen.
What's your favourite goal from outside the box ever?
Oh, that's a good question, actually.
What's your favourite goal from outside the box, Mr. Batman?
Who was that one?
Probably
it was bad, babe.
Probably Tony Yeboah. But rather than the one against Liverpool, the one against
Wimbledon.
Wimbledon. It was against Wimbledon.
That's like Bane's fun uncle.
Hello,
Ben. Hello. How are you doing?
They expect one of our bodies in the wreckage, Bane.
Oh, I can't see you. We're in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, that's a.
Is that Batman?
No.
Steve's seething now. He's seething.
What a start to the year.
Well, where else to begin, of course, than with the news that Reuben Pinder has been sacked from his job. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Ruben. It's not you. It's Ruben Amorim, who, of course, you know, is the Manchester United manager.
Not even spelt the same.
No, but a more successful Ruben, you've got to admit.
Well, not today.
I still think today.
You said is, but he was. You know that moment they always have in murder mysteries where someone says, "Oh, he was such a nice guy," and then they go, "Was."
Was. And you said was in the first sentence as well.
Sorry.
So
he is such a... Yeah, you have to say it.
I thought you were going to do that. He was such a nice guy before anyone knew he was dead. And then the detectives go, hang on. Already talking about him in the past tense. Which
it was at that moment.
What we'll be doing today, we'll be trying to remember to talk about Ruben Amorim in the past tense.
In the form of a murder mystery.
Not because he's dead, but because him as the Manchester United manager and or head coach, very contentious issue towards the end there. That's long in the past. The Portuguese's final game of his 14-month spell in charge was, of course, the 1-1 draw against Leeds United on Sunday that leaves Manchester United 6th in the Premier League after 20 matches, which is not that bad, although it is quite a weak year. You have to admit, I can imagine this being worse in previous seasons. Okay, I think we should start by trying to understand what's happened, because the timing of this is a little bit confusing, isn't it? Ruben, let me come to you. He made quite a lot of cryptic comments. This is Ruben Amorim, not Reuben Pinder, after the game against Leeds, which is worth saying. The game itself, I don't think fans were particularly unhappy. I think lots of people expected them to lose. They didn't. There was a reasonable performance, at least in the first half.
I believe you expected them to win and said as much in a group chat to me.
I did.
Definitely, I think was the word that was used.
I watched Leeds for 5 minutes and thought, this team is absolute trash. Obviously, anyone would beat them. Alas, that didn't occur. But I mean, the reason I'm saying that, Ruben, is to suggest that I don't think the timing of this is necessarily because of direct footballing reasons. Yeah. It seems to be more related to what he said after the game, which was...
I just want to say that I'm going to be the manager of this team and not just the coach. I was really clear on that. And that is going to finish in 18 months. And then everyone is going to move on. Yeah. And that 18-month section is the most important bit, where he's essentially saying, I will be here until the end of my contract, but no longer.
Yeah.
And then...
Or you could interpret it as him saying, I believe that my contract says I'm the manager, and if they want to change that, then they can change it in 18 months, not before then. That's how I interpret it.
I think these are kind of two slightly separate points. Like, one, that he's saying, well, I'm going to stay, rather than doing his maybe I'll leave, maybe I won't thing of the past. But also, the head coach and manager thing is a really interesting kind of thing for him to bring up, because my inference of that is that if you want to be a manager, then that means that you want more input on other areas of the club rather than just on-pitch coaching.
Yeah.
But
it is, of course, the first week of January.
Yeah, indeed. But he's also telling, well, I suppose maybe it makes sense. He's also telling the other departments to do their job. But one obstacle to those departments that he mentions, the scouting department and sporting director, Jason Wilcox, doing their job to levels that would satisfy him, is that last season their form completely tanked. So they missed out on a lot of Premier League prize money. And then they lost the Europa League final, which would have given them more prize money. And they still spent £200 million in the summer, maybe though on players that he wouldn't have prioritised. Maybe that's where it comes from. But I don't really think he can say they haven't spent money. I think
I would say they've backed him. Whether it's to the degree that he believes he needs to be backed or not, I don't know. I mean, JJ, Ruben has alluded there to the fact that the transfer window is happening now, that it seems that maybe Ruben Amorim wanted more activity than it's perhaps likely that Manchester United will engage in. And also there's been this sort of tricky issue, thorny issue, if you will, of the three at the back system, which for a couple of games recently, we saw Ruben Amorim sort of leave alone and then return to. And again, like his post-match press conference comments seem to indicate that there's some complication around this issue, isn't there? That there's more people involved in this decision than just him.
Yes, what I took from his comments was that he essentially saying, like, I know I don't have the name of someone like Thomas Tuchel or Jose Mourinho, but I am the Man United manager.
Sure. You did pick me. Yeah,
I can do this, and you're being interfered with. Basically, it sounds like there's a committee above who are like, maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Actually, the management have taken the decision, and we think really you should be doing this sort of thing, is what he's dealing with. And he's just like, off. Like,
right.
I got here of the things that I did, and I'm trying to do these. Yeah. You're not going to give me the funding now to do this, so why am I even here in the first place?
It's very much how I talk to my wife. You know, when she says, "Why are you doing that?" I say, "You married me. You remember, you married me, and this is who I was when
I've seen you do that.
Me.
Exactly. Yeah, I believe it.
She loves it.
I can vouch it. Yeah, she does. And the thing is, he's got is not much of like an evidence base to fall back on. Like, he's got a reading here. He's won 24 of his 63 games in charge in all competitions.
He also has the same points average. Points per game average as Alan Pardew and Bruno Lage.
Indeed. In fact, he has the worst rate of any United manager since the retirement of Sir Alex Ferguson, aside from Ralph Rangnick.
1.24, isn't it?
I think he's behind Rangnick, isn't he?
Is he?
Pretty sure I saw something this morning that suggested he has the worst.
The numbers I have in front of me, he's got 38.1% win rate in all competitions, and then Rangnick's got 37.9%.
Maybe it's league totals, though.
I would say either way, they're both not. They didn't do particularly well. As the manager of Manchester United, who are quite a big club.
Yeah.
And your original question to me was something else, though. It was like,
well, it was just, I mean,
the back three thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of it comes from like. He wants to play this way, and then more of the reading that I've done in the last couple of days is that it sounds like, you don't know if this is true or not, but Wilcox very much favours this kind of 4-3-3, the traditional values of Man United, or like modern football, a lot of managers do. And the thought would be that Amorim would slowly integrate. He's a very talented manager. He would bring his system in, and he'd develop it, and as the players he had, he would adapt to them. Like most good managers would adapt to the players they have, rather than trying to. Like we said at the start, they don't have the players to play what he wants to do. They don't have it. And it probably only works really when you've got a big quality gap between you and other teams. So some of the stuff he was doing.
Well, he said this very recently as well, didn't he? Just to add to your point.
Yeah.
He said a few weeks ago when he was asked, why have you changed your system finally to a back four? He said, if we want to be successful playing a back three, we need to spend a lot of money and buy more players. But then a game or two later, he reverted back to it as well.
Well, yeah, and other things I've read is that it seems to be that as they've struggled, he goes back to what he knows, whether it works or not. And so he doesn't really adapt to opponents. There's more, I thought, remember Marco Silva after the game was just like, yeah, we beat them by doing this. It was really easy.
Yeah.
And so that was shared around Man United's board, staff, people who were alarmed at that, how easy it was to be able to work out what he was doing and how easy that was to stop. So it seems like he was hired for certain reasons, because Barada was the one who wanted him to come in, right? That's what. seems to be the story.
Omar Barada, yeah. Who's the CEO? Is he the chief executive?
Yeah.
And then
But
Wilcox is now
did he
director
not
of
take
football.
a slightly different role after Dan Ashworth left?
I
Or is
think
that Wilcox
I think
who
that's
stepped
Wilcox. So I think what it was at the beginning was that Omar Barada he's the person who came from Manchester City, the club executive, who was spoke strongly in favour of Amorim. Apparently at the time, Jason Wilcox had some fears that the squad perhaps wasn't suited to playing back three, and we know that Dan Ashworth just outright disagreed, and that seems to be that one of the reasons that he ended up no longer being at the club was related to this choice. But it does seem as though Omar Barada was the one of the three that was really backing that decision.
Which is weird, given that, as Laurie Whitwell writes, Wilcox is known to like 4-3-3, like JJ said, from the brought success at his former club Manchester City. And Wilcox and Amorim have been having regular, almost daily meetings about tactics and selection.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the thing that drove Amorim a bit insane.
Well, I wonder, I mean, also, like, I think the whole system thing is a bit of a misnomer as well. Like, I think Amorim's biggest mistake in the last 6 weeks was giving into it at all and ever changing. Because as soon as he played back four in one game or two games, a few games, and actually in those games they had better results, right? As soon as he did that, he just gave credence to and acknowledged everyone who's ever said that the system is the problem, or not the system, but
we said it before he even
back.
took his first game. We're like, I don't know if this will work. Yeah.
That's true, but that's true, and maybe it's true in terms of personnel. But I just think like how they actually play with and without the ball it has almost nothing to do with three players at the back. Like I think that his team selections have been quite negative in the last 18 months. I don't know however long he's been there.
I think specifically, you don't need to have three centre-backs playing against one forward in a team battling relegation. Like, you don't need it.
You don't need it, but also, depending on how you use it, it can be more progressive attacking than defensive.
Right?
In many respects, when they were playing back four stuff, they were playing back three stuff, but with a more advanced wing back, right?
Sure.
And they were defending with a back five.
But by acknowledging it, he gives credence to all of these arguments, and I just don't think that many of them are really that.
Mainly because of how strongly at the start he said, "If I give up on my idea, then like, what's the point in anything?"
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? He was so dogmatic about sticking to your principles, and I guess that makes sense because if you give up on something that you initially convey really strongly, then how are the dressing room why would they believe anything that you say next?
Right,
like if you look to be flip-flopping.
In a practical sense, they got rid of all of their wide players, right? They got rid of Rashford, they got rid of Garnacho, and then they were led to a situation where they were starting to have to play Dorgu almost as a wide player, right? I think that's the problem.
They actually
did,
were.
yeah. And I think that was the question that we've had from the beginning was, what does this do to your squad? Because not only is there the pressure of having to move your squad from one shape to another, there's also the pressure of probably having to move it back once it's done. And I think that's the legacy that Amorim leaves behind. On top of, I guess, the whole Manu stuff as well. The question is like, has he actually devalued the assets that the club has? But coming back
let's address that though, just while you brought it up. Like, can you think of a player who is like a back three system specific player who cannot fit into any new system if they bring in a manager who plays four at the back? I can't really think of one.
In their current squad.
Yeah.
I think the issue is more like the wide players now, right? If they do go back to having, a 4-3-3 or whatever, and talking about structures is always a weird thing to do anyway. But like that's the reality, right? They don't really have wide players anymore, which means if you're going to provide width, you're probably going to have to do it with either fullbacks or wing backs.
I'd say they have two proper wingers, or two players that could play like a proper winger. They're both inverting, Ahmad and Mbermo, both coincidentally in Africa at the moment, which has made his team selection a lot harder.
Yeah.
But they would also both require an overlapper at right back.
Yeah.
And then on the left side,
and they've been most effective playing on the same side.
Exactly, together. And then on the left, they don't really have any left wingers because Garnacho went to Chelsea and Rashford went to Barcelona, and they've been playing Mount or Cunha in that position, who could do it in like a 4-2-3-1. But yeah, like as John says, when you completely direct all your transfers towards a certain system, and then try to move back, you end up with things like Dorgu playing right wing.
Yeah. And I think as well, like I said before, a sort of very like neoliberal kind of phrasing of like devaluing their assets, right? But I think that's what it comes down to now is that for a club, I guess for a club like Manchester United, they can risk losing a bit of value in their squad. But like it feels like, where is the value in that squad? The players who are better are older and are going to be leaving soon. You're not going to get huge amounts of money for them, I guess, unless you send Bruno to Saudi or something and get a big chunk for him. For me, that's the big issue, is that like one of the manager's biggest jobs is to retain the value of your squad so that you can sell your players on, invest and make them worth more. Whereas I feel as though when you look at that squad now, that everyone is just like, well, this squad needs a lot of work. And there's not even any sense that, you've raised the profile of, I don't know, one of your centre backs that you can sell to, I don't know, Everton or Palace or something and get some value for money there. I guess that's another issue. But coming back to the structure thing, like the thing that's so funny for me about all of this is that I think if Ruben Amorim had played a back four system, we would have had none of this conversation.
No, I agree.
Like even if he'd been as bad in a back four system, I don't think people would have verbalized what was wrong with Ruben Amorim as a lack of tactical flexibility.
Yeah.
It would have just been, this guy's not a good coach. And I think that kind of does get to the sort of semantics of what we're talking about here, which is that it's almost like the fact that he went in, as you said, saying this is the system that I'm going to use, and then was completely inflexible with it at first and then flexible with it later on, has sort of made the bed that he's now having to lie in.
It's one of his big problems is that if you allow yourself to be dunked on like that constantly, then you're only ever going to get dunked. I mean, I think you have to be more of a dick, basically.
The system has to work, basically, I think.
If you're going to talk about it in the way that he did.
And it didn't. And therefore, like you said, they got to a point where it's like, even if he shifts to a back four system, you're now in a scenario where you're like, well, we might as well just hire a coach who actually coaches a back four system, because now what we've got is a guy who's throughout his whole career, bar a couple of games at the beginning, has coached a back three system and is now having to learn how to coach a back four system. Like, what's in it for us?
This is the real problem, right? Is that like, this is how history works, by the way. Like he's going to be remembered as being sacked and not being a success at Manchester United because he was inflexible tactically and he played a back three system. And I just don't think it's got anything to do with the reason why he failed. But this is what I mean about if you let people dunk on you. If you let 100,000 people just believe that they're right and feel confident in saying it's because of the back three, then that's just what it is forever. Because this thing, it doesn't matter. It's not like it's not like a war where you have to work out what actually happened to understand it, to try to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's just a Man United manager's been sacked. Who cares? It doesn't matter what the truth actually is. Just whatever the most people say is what it will be.
Yes. Most of the manager's job is controlling the narrative, right?
Yeah.
These guys get press conferences before and after every game. They get to tell the story that they want people to learn. And when they're winning, then they can shape that narrative. And when they're losing, the narrative often shapes
over the weekend, he told journalists basically that I'm not allowed to buy anyone. And now that he's been sacked, presumably, I would say, I like Ruben Amorim, and I like, unusually for when a Man United manager gets to the end of their tenure and I'm ready for a new one, I could still watch him. I think he's charismatic. He's good fun. He does fun interviews. Every couple of months there's a new fun thing to enjoy.
I think he feels closest to someone our sort of age who would be going in.
Sure.
And so it's almost like you're hearing from a friend of a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes.
It does feel like that. And I would say to say one thing in favour of the club for firing him, I think when a manager says something like what he did after the Leeds game, which clearly relates to the transfer market, which clearly shows that he no longer believes the same thing moving forwards that they do. There's I would have more criticism for them if they just kept him after that point. They've gone, okay, well, might as well just call it now then, because we're telling you this one thing. You're so unhappy about it that you've gone and you've tried to cryptically tell the press that this is what's happening. So we might as well just call it.
It's the manager line, isn't it? It's like, I don't think kind of using press conferences to somewhat cryptically ask for more transfers is rare in the Premier League, but doing the kind of like, I came here to be a manager, not a head coach, directly contradicting what they hired you as, that's like the fundamental sticking point that I think is the red line for the board.
And Laurie Whitwell wrote this in his analysis in David Ornstein's news piece, which was to say that while Ruben Amorim's been here a number of times before, making fairly controversial statements in press conferences, the target has always either been his players or himself. And this is the first time really where the target has evidently been people above him,
He's
and they've immediately sacked him.
He's basically given them an ultimatum, though, right?
Yeah.
By saying,
And
I
they've called it.
want more control at the beginning of January, and they're like, fine, we're going to accept that.
Which makes sense, right? Like and it doesn't. No one has to be to blame either. If that's what he wants in order to do his job properly, he thinks, and they think something different, then there's no point continuing.
What
to
I
work
don't
together.
understand though is that it seemed like they made it very clear that he was the head coach at the beginning.
3 months ago, Ratcliffe said he needs 3 years to really prove whether he could do it.
But the wording of head coach versus manager, like, was it not when he was announced? Were they not very clear that he wasn't the manager and he was the head coach? That's what I don't understand.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the first time United have done that. They've always been a manager club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that because I saw a news outlet had made a quote like Ruben Amorim sacked as head coach of Manchester United, almost like a little bit of a dig to his comments. But
right,
I still think there's a little bit of lost in translation there. I don't think he's specifically saying he wants his contract changed. It's that he wants to be regarded as in charge of things, and they should just stop telling them what to do. Like they can have conversations and work together to get to a certain point. But if they're then starting to say that we don't know what you're talking about, you should be doing this instead.
Yeah,
that's when you'd be like, well,
maybe it's specifically at Wilcox, right?
I think
terms of the what's happening on the field.
Sounds highly likely. The whole thing sounds like an episode of Succession or a season of Succession, really, behind the scenes. And they just got rid of some guy who's in charge of the news channel.
But it's almost like he's had to say the safe word, right? That's what that interview feels like to me. Mm-hmm. It's like him saying, okay, I maybe misunderstood what you guys wanted from me, but I'm going to say these words because as soon as I say them, you're going to have to fire me. And that means I'll get my payout and you can hire for a new manager.
Yeah, like January, in Naked Gun, where he's like, I love swimming in raw sewage. I love it, I love it, I love it.
The irony with all of this for me is that I think that he actually has been incredibly tactically flexible. I think if you compare what Manchester United were doing last season with what they're doing this season, it's like night and day. They played like super direct football now, and they don't care too much about like build up. They've sort of accepted a lot of the modern ideals in the Premier League, at least, for how you should play football. And they look incredibly different this season. And I think that's...
Well, they're in 6th place. They are 3 points off 4th right now. They're only 3 points behind Liverpool. They're on the same points as Chelsea, who've also just dodged an enormous media bullet. Don't worry, Chelsea. We'll talk about you and Maresca on our episode later this week.
Sack your coach on New Year's Day. It's like it will definitely go under the radar.
United are also 3rd in the table for expected goal difference.
Right? Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. That's kind of what my point when I was talking about the Leeds game. Right? Is like the last reason to sack him at the moment is because they're bad at football. Because they're probably better at football than they've been. At any point during his 14 months in charge.
Very depleted squad as well.
Yeah,
just absolutely. On the system thing we were talking about earlier, like in relation to that, I don't think the reason that he very briefly switched to a back four necessarily was him going, all right, I'll try something new completely.
Yeah,
I think it was because all of the defenders he had available were like left-footed.
Yeah,
so he didn't want to play like 3 lefties in a back 3, which did he do? No, because he brought Euro back in against Leeds. Mm-hmm. So he kind of just reshifted it so that the furthest defender on the right side of the pitch at least was right-footed. Sure. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason he did that.
It is worth saying that while I've said that they're only 3 points off Liverpool in 4th, they are also only 4 points off Palace in 14th. So, it's a very congested middle of the table.
It's a good position, but a vulnerable one.
They've had plenty of opportunities to go into the top 4 as well, which they haven't taken. They drew with Wolves. That would have put them in the top 4, I'm pretty sure. They drew with Leeds, that would have had them higher up the table as well. And so I think part of it probably comes down to the fact that they've had plenty of opportunities to actually solidify themselves in the top 4 with easy games, and they haven't done it. And I also think, just from a tactical point of view, the big question with Amorim was always going to be what happens next season rather than what happens this season. Mm-hmm. Like this season is like playing the Premier League on easy mode for a club like Man United. They don't have European football. They're able to play in this way where they can be super intense and play like very direct and have the recovery periods in between the games to be able to play in that way. And I think that, probably he would have finished pretty high up the table if they'd have kept him to the end of the season. But then I guess that raises a question of like, what do you do the following season? So for me,
would anyone? Yeah, that's always the question, isn't it? Like, we are about to see Darren Fletcher come in, I think, at least for Wednesday's game. I don't know what the longer-term interim plan will be, although David Ornstein has written that it's more likely they'll wait until the summer to appoint a permanent coach. So it's very possible, and we'll come to talk about this a bit shortly, that Darren Fletcher could be the coach for the next 4 months. Would Darren Fletcher finish high up the table with this squad? I think that's always the question.
That's going to pose them a problem, though, right?
I think so. Let's talk about that. Let's wait to talk about that. Steve has included here that the official club statement said when Ruben Amorim was hired in November 2024, Manchester United is delighted to announce the appointment of Ruben Amorim as head coach of the men's first team.
The most egregious part of that statement is the use of the word "is" rather than "are."
Right.
But
you've got to know that you are as opposed to is.
Well, yeah, just football clubs should always be conjugated in the plural.
I agree. Although they're not. Are they in America?
No. It's an Americanism.
It's an Americanism, isn't it?
That there is.
Yeah, which is the American stock market. They float on the American stock market.
But when they float there, are they is or are?
But loads of clubs
just
do
like
that
most
here.
things in the Athletic are is
Regardless now, though, loads of clubs do it, which is ironic that it's an Americanism given that they give their teams plural nicknames like the Bears, for example. Anyway,
I mean, it's not technically an Americanism, right? Because technically this is accurate.
Well,
it's just not accurate when it comes to football.
Grammatically, it goes both ways, right?
Football clubs are both singular nouns, but they comprise of multiple people. So
Right.
I believe.
But who are they talking about here? Because if they're saying, we're delighted to announce the appointment as head coach of the men's football team, then it's only who is it that's saying that? It's not the players, is it? If it was the players that were saying we're delighted we've appointed Ruben Amorim.
You just changed Manchester United to we, which would make it are, not is.
No, I get you, but I'm simply saying to be pedantic in this specific situation. I actually wonder whether is correct.
Well, grammatically it can be, but it jars.
Grammatically it is correct, right? But
grammatically it is.
It's are correct. No.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no.
And the conversation ends there. Now, let's talk about why. I think we need to go back, talk about why they did that, why they hired him, not specifically as the head coach, but why they even hired him in the first place. People were very excited, weren't they, JJ? It felt like a new dawn after what was a very sort of toxic ending to Erik ten Hag's.
Erik ten Hag, who finished on a win ratio of 54.7%
and won.
won two trophies.
And yet everyone hated him.
Perception is all perception, right?
Yeah,
perception is all perception.
If Ruben Amorim looked like Erik ten Hag and Erik ten Hag looked like Ruben Amorim, this is a Jamie Carragher point, I think.
Looked and sounded. I think not just looked.
It's charisma as well as being handsome.
It's
and
Riz,
Portuguese.
I believe they call it.
Yeah, like Ten Hag was a famously quite ineffective communicator. Like he made a few like kind of clumsy errors with the media. Whereas Amorim used to joke with the media when he entered press conferences, and then the Leeds game, like none of that was there. And I think vibe and aura, to use a Gen Alpha,
using all of the words,
is a big part of it.
Aura can't be claimed by Gen Alpha, can it?
Yeah.
Is that a Gen Alpha?
Aura farming is the
aura farming.
I think aura definitely is a Gen Alpha concept.
People have had aura for decades.
Of course, but we've never labelled it as such.
I feel like
people
I would
have
use
had Riz
aura
for decades as well, Joe. But you don't catch people using.
When you've talked about someone's aura, people have done that for decades. I absolutely refuse to concede that. What's the difference? You just said aura. It's you meant the same thing, and we're describing the same thing.
Very true, but children have adopted that word in a way that they wouldn't have in the past. You don't hear kids saying aura until recently.
You just mean that they've popularized something that existed already.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as saying it's their word.
That's the same thing with all language.
No, because the 90s kids were the first to use wicked to mean good, okay?
Is that true?
I don't care if it's true or not, John. It was a slam dunk point. Anyway, what were you saying, Joe?
That was just the English. It said wicked.
Wicked?
We didn't say that.
What did you say?
That was ace.
What was the sort of cool
very
slang
tabloid.
Scottish, school term for
pure dead brilliant?
Pure dead brilliant.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking. I don't believe you. I don't think it was.
I talked about this before, yeah.
No, you just made that up. I swear to God, you made that up.
No, I come up with a better one if I'd made it up.
I
can't remember what it was.
Did sick ever make its way north of the border?
No, that's English as well. Yeah. We managed to get that one.
It's probably American, really.
Did Bangin' get up there?
Banging, yes, it did.
Yeah. Okay.
There's loads. Do you want to keep going through them?
Did Erik ten Hag get up there?
Yes, he did.
Right.
He lives there now in the Highlands.
Does he really?
Top of a mountain, yeah.
That would suit him, weirdly, I think.
I could imagine him.
He'd make a good shepherd, I think.
I think he would.
Coming through in the morning, having his coffee. I think he'd live in a hotel and he'd have a lovely time, go for
Stick
some
a
walks.
flat cap on him.
Yeah.
And give him a crook.
I will have one of those whiskies, he would say. And they would have lovely whiskies for him.
When he left, though,
it
did feel as though he was their attempt at a sort of cool, modern, progressive
They
system
became
coach.
vulnerable and like a laughingstock when he was there. And I think a lot of it's what we just talked about there is a lot of charisma in the way he comes across. But there were things that he came in and tried to put his way of playing in, as I remember it, and then basically stopped doing it after they were 4-0 down to Brentford in the first game because it wasn't going to work.
I think it was genuinely like 3 games in or something, wasn't it? 2 or 3 games in, and then it all changed.
Another battle between like what the players could do and what he wanted to do with them. Same story as old as time. But Ruben Amorim, if he hadn't left Sporting, he would be one of the names linked with the Man United job
right
now, because he turned them into like a Portuguese Alex Ferguson. He turned them from being a team who was around the top 4 Portuguese teams to winning the league. So he made them fantastic. They were good in Champions League as well. I remember that his team beat Man City. I think it was like 3-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
And you had Gyökeres scoring a hat-trick, 2 penalties. Just to remember.
Yeah, they beat City just before he went to Man United, which was a big reason why there was so much hype.
Well, he's a lot that game. I watched that game a lot to try and like see things you'd see that against Man City, what he saw from that game and when he came in. And it obviously there are lots of things that are different about managing Manchester United that I'm sure he's very aware of. But I remember the very first thing he came in and says, "I can't believe how many interviews there are to do.
Right.
This is a nightmare." You're like,
best thing about
this is going to work well.
The best thing about his entire tenure, I think, has been his fashion sense. He's worn some lovely jackets in his time.
He does look good, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to go and play the separation game now, but I think crucial point, a good one to remember, is that if they had, let's say they had hired Tuchel and he wasn't the England manager and they just sacked him now, they probably maybe would hire Amorim. Like, he still would be on their radar. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Yeah. All right, let's play the separation game, Ruben.
Okie dokie.
Wait, no, we go on the break during the game, don't we? It's been Christmas. I don't know what's happening anymore.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
We're going to make our way from Christian Pulisic,
or
Pulisic, depending on how you pronounce it, I'm not sure,
Pulisic.
to Casey Keller.
Wow.
So we're going to end on a goalkeeper.
Are we not allowed to use family members?
What, as in like garden football?
Yeah.
Well,
the garden football rule is not in operation. In
I would like to hear a legitimate route as well as a funny, silly one.
Wait, who? Am I spelling Casey wrong?
Casey Keller, both K's.
Oh.
Joe doesn't know who Casey Keller is, does he?
No, it's just because he's constantly bringing up an American footballer who begins with a C, Casey Keller.
Okay.
How are you spelling Casey with a K? K.
Keller. Casey K. Keller K.
Shall I?
Initials are KK.
Shall I slack you his Wikipedia page?
Kasey.
Kasey. That's what I was asking. Thanks. Okay.
Double L, double E.
Got it.
It's Casey Keller. Yeah.
Don't worry, everyone. I've got it now. Kansas City.
Oh, were you writing the letters K and C?
No, I wasn't. I was writing Casey with a C, and it was bringing up Casey Kelly, who was the American footballer. Wow, he's 56 years old now. It's exciting, isn't it? Let's go to a break. Okay, we're back in the room. I hope you enjoyed that advertisement. Advertisement.
Well, let's not get into Americanisms and pronunciation again, Joe.
Is it?
Yes. Who got a full route from Christian Pulisic to Casey Keller? Joe?
I got a full route.
And how many links?
I did it in 3, Ruben.
3, very good, very good. JJ?
Also 3.
Also 3. Jon Mackenzie?
Nah.
Okay, well, my route that I had prepared is also 3.
Oh.
So
I can claim to have a third American. Does that give me more kudos?
I like that.
That's good. It's enjoyable,
yeah.
Also, mine is...
Is it in the middle?
Mine's full of Premier League Barclays legends.
Okay.
But, I mean, not actually, but there's in players who...
Well, if you've both correctly done it in 3, then everybody wins. But I may prefer one.
Mine is
to the
Barclays
other.
legends.
Yeah?
Yes.
What else can you claim about yours to try to make it better than mine?
The next Man United manager is in mine.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
That would trump it. So let's find.
Yeah, I can't trump that.
Let's find out.
Yeah, okay.
Joe?
I'll go first. I'll say Casey Keller played for Fulham.
He did.
In 2007-8, where he played alongside fellow American Clint Dempsey, of course, who we'll all remember moved to Spurs for the 2012-13 season, where he played alongside Barclays legend Aaron Lennon, who played alongside Ross Barkley at Everton in 2017-18, who of course played with Pulisic at Chelsea in 2020-21.
That's a good route. I like that one.
Yeah,
That's nice.
What about you?
Casey Keller played at Spurs, same time as Michael Carrick, and he played with Gabriel Heinze.
You think Gabriel Heinze is going to be the next Man United manager?
No, I think Michael Carrick.
I know, I'm just doing a joke.
I mean, Gabriel
And
Heinze could be
Heinze,
the
yeah.
next Man United manager.
Gabriel Heinze.
You think Casey Keller's going to be the next Man United manager?
Well, Gabriel Heinze played at Man United and Marseille with next Man United manager Cesar Azpilicueta,
Oh, yeah, that one makes sense.
who played at Chelsea with a future Man United manager, Christian Pulisic.
Is that not in 2 then?
No, it's 3.
It's
Carrick,
Carrick
Heinze,
as-
Azpilicueta.
Yeah.
And the rules on
That's good.
appearances in this League Cup appearances count, right? As
Yeah, I think senior
Yeah,
appearances
yeah,
full
yeah.
stop count.
I thought it was
yeah.
league appearances.
Pre-season, no, but competitive appearances or
games.
competitions.
Okay.
I think
Then
competitive
the
appearances.
Keller Carrick overlap does just about count.
That's I like it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, nice, very good, John. Nothing. No.
I went down the wrong rabbit hole and then never extricated myself.
What
I
about
should
in the
have just-
game though, John?
No, I mean, I was too busy in the rabbit hole to play the game.
Right,
So
got it.
I had a good old time in the old Warren.
That sounds so creepy when you say it like that. I had a good time in the Warren. You know, that's the sort of thing that he said to the police before they locked him away for 100 years.
Normally, when I prepare this game, I just go on a player's Wikipedia page and then start like clicking on links until I get far enough in the past to go, oh, that's quite fun.
Mm.
But today I just plucked both players out and like tested myself
Yeah.
and doing it. And I went, Pulisic played with Marcos Alonso at Chelsea.
Mm.
And that is the key to jump back in time a long way because he played with Zat Knight at Bolton. Do you remember Zat Knight?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And Zat Knight played with Michael Brown at Fulham.
Don't remember
Dirty
Michael Brown.
Michael Brown played for Leeds as well. He was an awful tackler.
Okay.
That's what that
So
means.
Casey Keller played at Marseille.
No.
No, Gabriel Heinze was your Marseille link, right?
Yeah.
To Azpilicueta.
Yeah.
Did they overlap though? They can't.
Heinze and Azpilicueta, yeah, in 2011.
Oh, okay, nice.
Sometimes it's like John doesn't know he's on a podcast, isn't it?
What are we doing?
Mm.
What's
Anyway,
going on?
that was fun.
I like your route.
Yeah, I like
I'm
my
sorry
route the
that
best.
John interrupted.
I prefer yours because it includes Aaron Lennon.
Right.
I loved Aaron Lennon.
The one
I like
for two,
Aaron
JJ and Joe, Ruben. Which one are you going for? Is the
I mean, I think it's
Purely on Aaron Lennon.
Oh, fine, I won.
Yeah.
Look at that. Aaron Lennon, the next Man United manager. What are you going to do? Okay, right. Well, let's talk more about Manchester United now. This is a little aside I wanted to ask you guys before we come back to talk about the actual team again. But what do we think is next for Amorim? Before we talk about who Man United should sign to replace him. Because my personal opinion is that despite the fact that things have objectively gone badly, I think people still like him. I don't think he's going to be in line for like the Barcelona job, but I think he could still get a big-ish job, and if he does well, I think he's come late enough in the post-Fergie Man United malaise for people to go, it wasn't really him. Do you know
June
what I mean?
2026, Conference League winners Crystal Palace are delighted to announce Ruben Amorim has been appointed as Oliver Glaston's replacement because he's the only other manager who loves playing 3-4-3.
That's true.
I mean, I think that kind of, not necessarily Palace, but like a less pressurized environment.
Sure.
He could still probably do quite well somewhere. Like,
Where do you think he'll go?
He could get out
No
of the
idea.
Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see him being the Sevilla manager or something like that.
Right.
One of the second kind of tier ones.
That's how he'd manage, but where would he do it? If he was really severe, you know.
I think he'd go to Seville.
Oh, right. That would make sense.
I think so. Although he could live in a different city and travel in,
Yeah.
like they do in Celtic and Rangers.
Some lovely surrounding area in
Yeah.
Seville.
He could be the next Celtic manager.
That would be fun, wouldn't
That'd be
it?
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although similar
The
Similar environment,
Currently very similar coach.
It depends what his ambitions are and what he wants to achieve. So I think it's very easy for him to sort of hang about the Premier League and end up being the next Everton manager or something. And then your
Sure.
stock lowers. His stock is still high. You can still get a team that can compete for competitions, I think. So
Yeah.
he needs to manage his career kind of well now and pick someone that would get him back in.
Serie
And
A?
a kind of obvious one, maybe Serie A, but maybe doesn't. I don't know how much he knows about it. But an obvious one would be once Mourinho leaves Benfica, he go to Benfica,
Right.
and he could do that, and that would be
Oh,
a
I
thing.
forgot Mourinho was at Benfica.
So did I.
I think he'll take a break for a while.
I would have thought so too.
I hope he does. He's got a lot of money.
He's got another 2 years of contract money coming his way.
Yeah.
He can
And
do
then-
anything.
I don't know. I think like you say before though, Joe, I think he's been damaged from a tactical point of view. If people remember him as the guy who was inflexible, regardless of whether or not it's true,
Yeah.
I think a lot of boards look at him and they're like, oh, but this is the tactically inflexible guy, and modern football is all about flexibility. Therefore, maybe we shouldn't go for him. So
Yeah.
I don't think he'll get a top level job until
Until the long read is that he went to study under several managers to see what different things there are, and then
that's right.
That's what always happens.
He spent 4 years in Chile on top of a mountain, and he came back down knowing how to play 4 at the back.
He came back down or like when Batman goes to the mountain and he comes back with a blue flower, and suddenly he's really good at ninja fighting.
When does he do that?
In
the comics?
Batman Begins.
Oh, I never watched that one.
Well, it's really good, that one.
Is it?
I think you'd like it.
Yeah.
He goes, actually, well, sometimes you're funny to pick with films, aren't you? But he goes, yeah, it's good fun. He goes up and he has to fight Liam Neeson, and it's good fun.
Rarsgold, is that the character?
Whatever goes up to the top of the mountain, Master Wayne, must come down.
Exactly. His name's Liam Neeson. He has to fight Liam Neeson.
Right, that guy. Yeah.
As Liam Neeson.
That sounds like quite an easy entry level, like superhero.
You'd think, and yet
Really?
it's really hard. Yeah. And so after fighting Liam Neeson, he has to go back and he has to save Katie Holmes. I think
He doesn't have any powers, does he?
I guess that's
just gadgets.
True. Yeah,
and
but the power of gadgetry can get people a long way.
It can. Yeah.
the power of money, really, because that's what.
Exactly.
Maybe he was the Dark Knight that Manchester United needed right now. He could be if they sacrifice him and then they go and get.
What they could do is they could bring in a
Harvey Dent.
manager and you never know who it is, so it's always like silhouetted. And you never know, like the Stig
Like
or
the
Batman.
Stig.
Yeah.
That's
what they should
Stig
do.
Or Batman.
And then whoever it is, they'd be like, wow, we don't know which. Is it a few? Is it like Shakespeare? Is it a few of them?
That way, we'd never be able to enforce a label on them because
Exactly.
you can't say someone wearing a mask is inflexible. That would be mad.
Exactly. And then they'd have to have an altered voice the whole time in press conferences. So
What would it be?
I've probably.
The Bane voice.
That's Mr. Batman. That sort of thing.
I think my system's quite all right.
It's just Michael Caine doing post-match interviews.
I chose to play Patrick Dorgu and right forward.
I think you'll find the 4-2-3-1 will be quite operational.
Yeah, with a cat, always with a cat. Yeah.
I will
think so,
not
yeah.
sign another wing back. I will not do it.
All right, fine. Well, there we go. We think he is going to end up in some sort of comic book story. What about at Manchester United, though? Who do we think they should
Solskjaer.
sign next? Okay, well, let's start by talking about, because we broached it before, didn't we? It sounds like, at least for the Burnley game on Wednesday, it's Darren Fletcher, who will be the interim manager, who's currently the manager of the under-18s, right? He's been a fixture at the club for a very, very long time, obviously. My immediate fear when I read that that they might be waiting to appoint a permanent manager in the summer is, I think, sort of that would be 5 months. If it was Fletcher, let's say, that would be 5 months. That's quite a long time for an interim manager, isn't it? I can't really think of one apart from Ollie that has had that long. And what would Fletcher have to do to not be given an opportunity at the end of that? That's exactly the problem they had with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when they appointed him.
He did too well, didn't he?
Well, he did well, and then he did well, and then they couldn't do anything. And I imagine I can't,
This is that scenario's played out at Aberdeen since they fired Derek McInnes a while ago. And what they do is they hire the assistant or like someone comes in as interim. They do really well. And then everyone gets behind them. Bit of momentum and form, which always happens in football. And then suddenly the next season starts and everyone's figured them out and nothing really goes well.
Right.
And then you're stuck with them until November, January, chop their heads off and someone else comes in.
I think the research suggests that you shouldn't ever hire interim coaches because it almost never goes well in the long run.
You're saying you should have them, but then not hire them full time,
Yeah.
or you should just try and appoint a permanent manager.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what they're trying to do here is get back on the cycle of appointing coaches in the summer, which is what you should do because you would then recruit for coaches you have pre-season, etc.
There are coaches that will be newly available come the summer as well.
One interim coach, or admittedly in international football, who went on to do quite well, we won't go into whether or not they succeeded or not,
Roberto Di Matteo
was of course Gareth Southgate. He didn't want the England job, got it on an interim basis, took it over,
That's
got to
true.
a couple of semis and a final.
That's true.
2 finals actually.
Yeah.
Interim, they've all got it in for him.
But Manchester United should definitely not hire Gareth Southgate, mainly because I don't want Southgate to have to go through managing Manchester United.
Well, and I don't think they will, right? I mean, I feel like...
No, there was always a link there when Ashworth was knocking about, but now
Sure.
that he's gone, I don't think there is, which is good.
So who do we think it's going to be? I mean, like, is the plan, do you think, wait until the summer, at which point Maybe Thomas Tuchel has finished his experiment with England. Maybe Julian Nagelsmann is he the German manager? He's finished at Germany. I don't know. Pochettino.
I've heard of this hot new manager they should bring in. He's a Portuguese wonder manager. He's called Ruben Amorim.
Oh yeah,
he's making waves on the continent. He comes in.
Which continent?
He has a moustache and dark glasses.
Wow.
And he's got some crazy ideas.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Is this some kind of joke?
Ruben Amorim.
Is that at Ruben Amorim backwards?
Well, I couldn't say.
Oh, is he wearing a mask? Does he talk like this?
Yes.
Who do you think they should go for? Pick a name.
There's loads of different options, and it depends what they're looking for.
There's buckets.
Yeah, if you look at, this is the game we can play for hours, really. But you look at people like Vincent Kompany, you wouldn't expect him to go and be such an amazing manager at Bayern Munich because he was at Burnley and it didn't really work when he was in the Premier League, But then you think someone like Antonio Conte would be disastrous, but also amazing. The kind of elite, like, you guys need to step up because you're not going to get there, but it would probably blow up.
But Man United had their best ever results post-Ferguson under Mourinho.
And Mourinho, yeah. And he was always fighting against the players that he had, and he wanted more to come in.
And against the Glazers.
Yeah, if you look for the next Fergie, it's hard to find where they are. And like Kieran McKenna did very well at Ipswich. He's done very well at Ipswich. I think he's turned their season around just now in the Championship. And
Third,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So then they didn't start very well. And so what you've seen from him is someone who could definitely do it. He's on the staff under Solskjaer. He knows the club. But does he have the charisma and would he control them, or with the same problems that they've had with players dissenting over the past, would that come to the fore as well?
Sounds also like they want to hire a head coach. Maybe they don't want the next Ferguson. Maybe they want the next, Guardiola or something. I don't know. Yeah,
the most likely is whoever is going to be safest for the board so that their jobs are protected long term.
Right.
So whoever guarantees them an okay 18 months. There's loads of them. Marco Silva.
The problem is that it's such a massive club as a brand institution, whatever, but the team is not good. So,
it's a lot better than it was.
I think it is quite good.
It's
They're sitting sixth and they've not been great.
Right, yeah, but the squad is not the level of squad that, say, Thomas Tuchel would have managed at PSG and Chelsea.
No.
So it doesn't necessarily... So he might not suit the level of players that he's...
Sure.
He probably improves them. He made Chelsea really solid and they won the Champions League.
Uh-huh.
But there's a bit of disparity between the amount of attention that United warrant and the level of player that they have these days.
Yeah.
You just look at their timeline of coaches they've had. I just don't think people realise how much harder it's becoming for Man United to actually hire coaches, right? That's part of the problem. There's plenty of good coaches out there. They're not going to get them. Even saying like Tuchel maybe after the World Cup.
This is like the most brutal, best mate chat, isn't it? There's plenty of lovely sexual partners out for it. You're not going to get any of them. Lower your sights right now, mate.
He'll just put you in the 7 out of 10 or the 6 out of 10 bracket.
And I think, there's now so many clubs that are rich and also have much better context right now than Man United.
There's a lot of guys out there with better jobs than you.
Yeah, exactly.
More attractive.
But Nagelsmann, there's no way Nagelsmann is leaving Germany to go into the Man United job. No way, because he could get his pick of big jobs. He'll wait around until one of those big jobs opens up and he'll go for it.
Mm-hmm.
The Manchester United job has become a poison chalice. Look at the last two coaches who did it. And Manchester United had to go into lesser leagues to try and find successful coaches who they're like, okay, we are looking for a guy. This is the problem they face, right? They want to compete at the top of the table.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be able to get any of the coaches necessarily at the top of the big 5 leagues to join them. So they have to then shop in lower markets. That's proven to be a problem because I think people judge coaches in lesser leagues by how good they are in possession, and they always get sort of found out a little bit because the demands are so much higher in the Premier League from an out of possession point of view as well.
Yeah.
So the other option is that we'll go deeper in some of these other leagues and we'll get up and comers in for example the Premier League. So they'll be linked with Iraola, they'll be linked with Glasner, they'll be linked with Silva. But as we've talked about again and again and again on this very podcast, the problem is that those coaches are doing something entirely different from what Manchester United want them to do eventually. So you're still taking that risk on board. You're still taking the risk that this coach will be able to start producing football that a protagonist football club should be playing. And none of these coaches are at protagonist football clubs. They can all play underdog football and they're very successful at it. They're very good at it. But it's just a completely different kettle of fish. So they're sort of caught in a weird world where either they have to reduce their expectations for what they get from a manager and say, okay, this is going to be a long run thing, which, as we've seen, they're just not very good at doing because the fan base expect more. Or they are going to have to try and chase a big manager who probably won't.
Surely the big ones would take. There would be a load of managers who would take that job because under the idea that if you have the ego that I can be the one that fixes this, that I could be the one that does it, it would be very attractive if there is money they can put behind them, which there is.
Yeah, but then the last two coaches they've got are Ruben Amorim and Erik Ten Hag.
Yeah.
Where are the elite coaches who were happy to take the money in those last two appointments?
If there was more of an understanding that they could maybe be more successful by playing underdog football, which I understand why there isn't and why fans expect more. But if they were quite content to do that, then, some managers might fare better rather than, say, if they hired a Glasner and they were happy to have 40% of the ball and just hit the channels.
I don't think that would go down.
It wouldn't go down well. That's the thing. But it's partly like the punditocracy just constantly being like Manchester United wingers attacking football.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, like the club of that size, they demand protagonist football. But like a Cesc Fabregas, for example, one of the hottest new young managers in Europe, he's never going to take that job now, is he? Because for reasons you're saying, he would just wait for
Bruce.
the Arsenal job or the Chelsea job.
Well, do you guys want to hear who the sort of aggregate odds favourites are?
Yeah, I did see that Laurent Blanc's in there again. He always comes up. It's really, I love that one.
Alan Kirbishley.
He's quite far down the list. He's like, I don't know, outside the top 10. But
is he even
is
still
there.
managing Laurent Blanc?
We don't know.
I'll give you a choice for you. So there's some names we've already mentioned. Obviously, currently in seventh most likely on the aggregate to be the next permanent manager, Michael Carrick. 6 is Kieran McKenna. 5 is a name that we haven't mentioned yet. We talked about prior to starting to record, Xavi Hernandez, who seems kind of insane.
He gets linked to
that's 18 months and he's out. Yeah.
Linked to a lot of these clubs as well. He was being linked with Spurs for a little
purely
bit.
because he's available and hasn't taken a job since Barcelona. Which would tell you that he doesn't just want any job. So I don't think he'd take it.
Gareth Southgate is 4th highest. Again, this is the morning of who the hell knows, right? Darren Fletcher, Oliver Glasner is the second most likely, apparently, according to this. Which I mean,
he's out of contract in the summer, so
that's true. But I just can't see it. I think if the big talking point has been 3 at the back, then I just think they would be absolutely insane.
But he doesn't even. That's not his favorite formation. He just does that because that's what the players has got.
Exactly.
So it would work.
But as far as perception and narrative goes, half of this conversation has been talking about whether it's true or not. I just think it would become immediately the thing that they talk about. Is the payoff high enough with a manager like Oliver Glasner that you'd be prepared to accept that? I wouldn't ever make that.
I agree. He should renew his contract to Selhurst Park.
It's just a weird defensive Gareth Southgate, who I'm not saying should be it.
Sure.
But if you go into Manchester United,
you're just trying to make your dream real. you want to see this live.
No, I'm just trying to, because we talk about what makes a good manager and whatnot, but if Southgate surrounded himself with people who are very tactically aware and good coaches and can do are very aware of how to make pressing work in the way you should do in the Premier League, and he's got good coaches around him basically.
Yeah.
If he's the head of that, what he's shown with England when he was there was that you can hide them from the pressures that made them so terrible in the first place.
He could absorb toxicity.
Yeah, and also focused on the very small details that are what have made certain teams do well. Brentford are 7th in the league just now, I think, or maybe 8th at the table.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of set pieces, long throws. They once scored the first corner, I think, of the season or something like that, recently. But it's a lot of not doing anything too spectacular, taking advantage of your strengths and trying to minimize your weaknesses, what all managers should do. But mostly the stuff that Man United managers struggle with is all the noise around it. The pressure builds to the point Amorim, maybe this is not fair, but didn't seem to handle it very well, and that was part of his problem. And so if you have someone who is very used to that, it would be. I don't think he'd end up making them elite, but
that's fair.
That'd be funny.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Would you care to guess who is the most likely according to the aggregate betting odds?
Zinedine Zidane.
No.
He's always in there.
The most likely. Is that based on what people are betting on, or?
Well, I don't know. I'm just on an odds website that aggregates a bunch of different odds from different places.
Is it Enzo Maresca?
He is. He's only been out of a job for 3 or 4 days, but Enzo Maresca is today the most likely according to the betting odds, the bookmakers. to be the next Man
I mean,
United manager.
it does kind of align with what Jason Wilcox wants the team to look like.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was at Man City. It looks like Maresca wants the Man City job after Guardiola, and so he plays nice football.
Surely it's Vincent Kompany's that job. Surely.
I would have thought so as well.
He's the only coach of that level, I think, who's going to make the cut.
Yeah,
because he's got the aura as
well.
well.
I was thinking that company would go to Man City and Maresca could go to Bayern Munich, so that would be like the swap because it's hard to lose at Bayern, right? So then,
and if Maresca wants the City job after Pep, then going to United is not going to help him get that job.
It's also like having left one club where he's felt undermined. Like, surely going into Manchester United, he's going to feel exactly.
Well, there's no money left to spend. Yeah.
How about this one then? Okay, in at number 8. And I started at 7. No, it's not. It's not Ariel. Ariel isn't at number 9. And number 8's Emery. And I wonder.
Well, I think this is good for John's point. So I can interrupt.
No. Go ahead.
But on John's point, like if you were Emery now, so like 100% would be a great Manchester United manager. But would you leave Villa right now? Like, would you? Because it's kind of set up the way he wants it.
Yes.
You think he would?
I think so because I think they couldn't spend the money in the summer to move forward. There's no way of making that team achieve any more than they can possibly achieve right now. There's no way that he can improve. So I think he's already at the zenith. If I'm Unai Emery, I'm stood on top of a mountain looking at another slightly bigger one.
What does John think? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if he goes, would he improve Man United? Yeah, I think so. I think what you get with Emery is details, and I think that's maybe something that's been lacking from Manchester United managers for the last few times. He knows how to play in the Premier League, and
he's not underdog football.
It's not, but it kind of is. It's like it is a lot.
It didn't work at Arsenal.
Yeah, and like whenever he's gone somewhere big, it hasn't worked out right with PSG as well. It is a lot of like baiting and hitting space with tempo shifts quite quickly, which means that you might get the benefit of that first season, a la Slot, and then second season. Teams are just like, fine, we know what to do. We just sit deep, and then they struggle to break us down.
But then how does that explain how Aston Villa are currently second in the league or third, wherever they are?
In what sense?
Well, I mean, they had a terrible summer. They had a terrible start to the season. Everyone that's playing against Villa this season under Emery did last season, knows how to do it. And he's bucking the trend that you seem to suggest is there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that he won't like finish high up the table this season, but that has come at wild levels of overperformance according to the underlying numbers. And I hate talking about Villa for this reason because as soon as you mention underlying numbers, people just think you think that they're shit, which is not true. I think they're a good side.
That's what you say privately.
That's what I say privately. Yeah, exactly. But in public, I definitely put on this persona that I don't think that. Yeah.
Because you have to fake what you mean in order to upset specifically people from Birmingham.
The internet is frightening.
So for me, what you want from elite coaches is sustainability and consistent performance, right? That's why Mikel Arteta is such an elite coach because yes, we can point out the problems that his teams have, but they still consistently perform at a level where they deserve to win most of their games. Mm-hmm. That's very different when you're talking about a coach having a good season because his players are finishing at an extraordinarily high rate. Could Emery win the league? Yeah, if he had a better squad and everything went well for him for a season potentially. But
are Man
less
United
convinced.
hiring a manager to win the league? I don't think they are.
Well,
right?
no,
that's mad.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer,
right? But I think that I think Emery would be a nice stepping stone coach, right? Because what Emery's going to give you is the ability to build up, the ability to play that direct football, right? Where you are playing what people think is the Manchester United way of that's in many respects that's what Solskjaer did. Albeit much less well, in my opinion, than Emery. It's also what Ferguson did to a large extent.
What about the ability to be good enough to attract better players that maybe later can be used with a coach that does elite stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think Emery is probably the best option that Manchester United would be able to have in terms of what we were talking about before.
You're just saying that because you don't want them to take Iraola.
No, I mean, I think them going for Iraola would be fine this season. I mean, at the moment, Manchester United are playing Iraola football. That's the reality, right? I think Iraola is probably slightly better than Amorim, at least in the most recent iteration of Amorim we've seen at structuring the in possession side of the game. But they're playing direct football. They're trying to destructure opponents. They're trying to play quickly so that opponents can't control games, and then trying to be in a position where they're well set up to be able to exploit that. The question with that is the same one that I would have with Emery, right? Which is can he sustain? Like, how sustainable can that approach be? Like when you build an approach around like creating chaos and being able to benefit from like variance as much as possible, there's always the possibility that you have a bit of a shit run for a few games. In which case, if you're in a title challenge, that's it. That's you out of the title challenge. Yeah. And I think that's the big issue with someone like Iraola. Is the question is how much can he evolve in possession to be able to control games when they are protagonists, rather than just be like, okay, we're not going to be the protagonist, so we're going to try and drag the opponent down to our level and play the kind of football that suits us more.
Okay.
One concern that I would have with Emery is the kind of hierarchical differences. Like at Aston Villa, they have allowed him to control basically everything and hire his friends to, form his triangle of trust or whatever Jacob Tanswell likes to call it in his articles. Whereas at United, clearly there's like people in place that want a head coach who will follow orders.
Yeah, a very good point.
It's also worth saying that like what I'm talking about in terms of consistency and control is an approach to football that is dying out, right? Like we are not going to see the same levels.
I was going to say
over the last 10 years.
No.
That in the future, where Guardiola could essentially force teams to play the way he wanted and just dominate games. That's not going to happen anymore. So for a team like Manchester United, I think part of the problem is that they live in this dreamland that they can arrive at getting the next Pep Guardiola. Whereas I think what a club like Manchester United should be doing is looking to the future and thinking like, where is the tactical landscape headed? What kind of coach should we be looking for? And I think Emery's a good shout in that respect, right? I think he will. Like he's shown that he can perform in the Premier League as it is right now. When he has good players available to him, the system works. Would he be winning leagues season on season? Probably not. But like Pep Guardiola isn't winning league season on season. Arteta isn't winning league season on season. No. I think we're now in a world where we're probably going to see just a lot of ups and downs at the top. It's going to be much more chaotic in terms of who wins. It's going to be like to do with momentum and fitness levels. And, do you have injuries? Do you have bad refereeing calls for a few games? I think that's what it... So I think being a good coach now at the elite level in the Premier League, you just have to put yourself in the mix and hope that things come through. And I think that's the world we live in now. So yeah, maybe Emery is a good... He's probably the best option for them to go for in terms of is an elite coach, is guaranteed to be able to compete at the top, but also isn't like taking a massive gamble on someone who is unproven.
Go get him, eh? Well, we'll see what happens over the rest of the season and in the summer. Just an update for you, JJ.
Yes.
Laurent Blanc left Saudi Arabia's Al Ittihad in September last year after winning a domestic double, so he's a free agent.
That's good. Carlo Ancelotti will be free after the World Cup.
He
feels like a Man United manager. Would you like that? I love Ancelotti.
Yeah, I like him as well. Yeah. Okay, great. You know what else I like?
The tuna baguettes.
That's true.
Cookies.
Yes.
Films.
Yes.
Films.
Potatoes.
Rocket League.
Yes.
Rocket League.
Well,
it's waning on the Rocket League a bit.
Sitting in darkened rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, likes that one a lot.
Big time.
Antagonizing.
Black clothing.
Very good. Do you know what I don't like?
Points. Yes, but I won't say it publicly.
It's points.
Oh.
You're right, Ruben. And you know why I don't like them? Because they're bad. Now, you might remember that, I forgot, before Christmas, we selected these two games, Man United Newcastle, Man City Chelsea. We selected those two games to play points are bad with. The current totals off the back of this week, that was a confusing way of saying that, wasn't it? What I'm saying is the points added off the back of those games. JJ,
yeah,
you had quite a bad one, I would say. You predicted that Man United would beat Newcastle 4-3. And then you predicted that Man City and Chelsea would be 0-0, which was closer. You added 2 there because it was a 1-1 draw, of course.
The one was a 1-0, wasn't it?
The other was 1-0 to Manchester United. So that was quite the... you added 6 points just on that game. 8 overall. Kaya, who's not here today, added 5. John, you and I added 4 together. Ruben, you added just 3. You went for 2-1 Newcastle. So again, it feels like this is where points are bad really comes into its own because you picked the wrong outcome, wrong result.
Probably should have been the result as well. So
in the spirit of the game, you were wrong.
Yeah, I meant XG.
You were predicting XG, but you only added 2. And then you said 2-1 Man City for that game, and it was 1-1. So you only added the 1 there. Congratulations.
Thanks.
The 1-1 bot is the winner of the week, of course, with 1 perfect prediction, just 1 point added on the other. But Ruben, you're the human winner. So well done.
Yeah.
Now, that means JJ, it's down to you to choose the 2 games that we predict for this week for next. Would you like to tell me what you want to predict?
Okay, well, there are managerial changes everywhere. So obviously we should be doing Fulham versus Chelsea.
That's good fun.
Yeah. And also Burnley versus Manchester United.
Okay. Let's do those 2. Right, starting with you. Fulham versus Chelsea. Chelsea, of course, what did they bounced back after their, we didn't talk about it at all today, bounced back after their managerial sacking to a 1-1 draw against Manchester City.
Well, they've won like 1-8 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, because Fulham, I've watched them a bit, I'm going to go 0-0 with these 2.
Fair enough. Okay. Burnley, Man United. It's got Man United win written all over it.
I don't think it does.
Really? You don't think so?
Yeah, I'm not doing a bit. I'm also going to go 0-0 on that one.
Fair enough. Okay, fine. Next up, it is Kaya. Is Kaya here?
Let me check. Hang on.
No, he wasn't here earlier, was he?
No.
No. Okay, in which case, Steve,
shy freeloader.
do you want to guess on Kaya's behalf?
Sure,
today?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I think that Fulham, it will be a 2-2 draw, Fulham-Chelsea.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then what about Burnley?
Burnley are terrible. I think
bad.
United are like a 1-0 away win to Manchester United, I think, for that one.
Just to let you know, when you opened the outside door, the inside door opened.
Yes.
There he goes. Just a little lesson about how
It's funny
it
how
works.
free people are when they're picking for other people,
Yes.
isn't it? He was just like, 2-2 draw.
Yeah.
Who cares?
2-2.
I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
Now, John,
Probably.
you and I drew, but of course you are ahead of me in the overall score, so that means I get to pick first here.
It's actually just you rubbing it in for me there. Yeah.
No, I'm just telling the listener
Okay.
how the game works, because believe it or not, some of them still don't know, which is maybe is fair enough. Okay, so for Fulham-Chelsea, I think Chelsea are going to win that game. I think it's going to be 2-0 Chelsea, 0-2. And then for Burnley-Man United, I genuinely think it's got 0-3 written all over it. Man United are going to win that game 3-0. They're going to storm it. And everyone's going to go, he was the problem. It was 3 at the back. That was the issue. They'll play 4 at the back.
4-2-3-1.
And you know what?
Jack Fletcher, captain.
Yeah, Martinez is going to score all the goals.
Of the Fletchers playing.
Yeah.
Darren coming on in midfield. A 3-man midfield of all the Fletchers.
I'd love that.
I mean, Kobe Maino's going to start, and it's going to be Kobe, it's going to be Casemiro.
Well, because Bruno's injured, right? Although is Kobe
Is
Mainoo
Mainoo
injured
fit
as well?
again?
Is he injured as well?
Oh, he's maybe injured.
Maybe
Play
he
him
is.
anyway, be fine. Yeah.
The narrative.
Play the idea of Kobe Mainoo.
Exactly.
That'll win the game.
Okay, John, down to you. Fulham, Chelsea.
Can I have 2-1 Chelsea? Is that available?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And can I have 2-0 Man United?
Yeah, this is a slightly less emphatic version of what I predicted. Okay, and then Ruben, over to you.
Worth mentioning that if, as we expect, Liam Rosenior is in charge of Chelsea for this game, he'll be
Sure.
coaching his first game against his old club.
Right.
Because he played for Fulham, didn't he?
Of course.
Born in Wandsworth as well. A Southwest London
Such a-
bonanza.
That was such a partridge thing. Because he played for Fulham, didn't he?
I would like Fulham 0, Chelsea 1.
Okay. Is that available, Steve? Yeah.
It is.
Great.
And I would like Burnley 0, Manchester United 1.
I mean, no one's going for like a 5.
I guess that on
Oh, did
Kaya's
you?
behalf.
You greedy bastard. I will have Burnley 1, Manchester United 2.
Yeah.
Is that available?
Fair enough.
It is a goal for Burnley.
All right. There we go. Well, what a week. What a Christmas. What a new year. Welcome to 2026. Everybody's losing their jobs.